Alright guys, welcome back to a new video. So on this one I will show you how to prepare Windows XP or Server 2003 for purely overclocking purposes. Doesn't matter which platform you are using, could be Intel, AMD, new Intel, old Intel. So this is the same thing I do no matter if I'm using a 775 system like Rampage Extreme or a new system like in this case Z490 DARK KP plus 10900K. The overall method I use is the same pretty much. Of course, big part of the whole like operating system preparation goes to actually making the installation media, so the ISO file, but I will not cover that in this video. So you can get good, already good ISOs already from the internet, from the forums and so on. Like there was a good one posted by barbone.net long time ago, I think in 2016. So you can use his operating system if you wish. It's quite good. Or you can use some other one which are available for download as an ISO file, and you can use my steps to prepare it. Now, if you wonder how to install Windows XP like this on a new platform like the Z490, Z390 and so on, go to watch my other video for that. I have made XP Server 2003 installation guide video for the Z490 platform as well as the Z390 platform in early 2019. So just go watch those videos if you don't know how to install Windows XP with these newer platforms. But yeah, so right now I only have one SSD plugged into the ASMedia SATA port along with the DVD drive in the other ASMedia SATA port. I have split the SSD into two partitions, and there's a reason for it. I always keep all of the software like CPU-Z, Superpi, all the benchmarks, screenshots, other programs like graphics card driver, other possible drivers, tweaking software in the D partition. So the C partition is only for the actual OS and so on, so that I can always quickly wipe the C partition, reinstall it quickly, and I will still always have all of the programs ready for use in the D partition. So it makes things a lot more convenient and faster, and it's better to have all of the unnecessary things on another partition than on the main partition where the operating system is running. Even a better way would be to have a completely separate drive as the D drive. So by not splitting the drive into two partitions, by having like a separate drive. Some people think that old mechanical hard drives are better for these old purposes than SSDs. Like many people have like a superstition that SSDs are too fast for these old tests. That could be true to some degree. For example, the famous American overclocker called Splave, he likes to run those old Western Digital Raptor drives that are those 10,000 RPM hard drives for these purposes. So he has two of them. So he has one as C and one as D. But I don't really feel that thing about the SSD versus hard drive. But it could be true. Some people may even favor old IDE drives for this purpose. So it is up to you. But the key for this thing is to have a very low-end, tiny graphics card from NVIDIA, not from AMD. Old, tiny NVIDIA cards are better than AMD cards for 2D, like Superpi, 1M, 32M, Pifast, wPrime. An old NVIDIA card is better. The older the card is, the better, because you can use much older driver as well, and the older drivers are smaller than the drivers of the newer cards. Of course, you can use like a newer card just fine, like 710 GT, 610 GT. But my favorite VGA for 2D has been the trusty old 6500 GT from 2005. It's one of the first low-end PCI Express graphics cards, so that's why I like it. The driver is only like 30 megabytes in size. It's extremely tiny. I really like it a lot. But now in this example I'm using the 710 GD actually. So yeah, these are already split, so I already have things in the D partition. As you can see, 4 gigabytes are being used, so I will just go to the C partition. I will press install, I will not delete it, I will press install, and I will do a full format. And I will press F. So now we can be sure that everything, all the unnecessary things from previous use will be completely deleted, and we can start from scratch. And we will let this to install, and then we will just make all the necessary steps inside the OS to get the operating system ready for overclocking purposes. This current operating system I'm currently installing is kind of like it is stripped down, but it's not like extremely stripped down. So this OS is actually good for wPrime and so on. For wPrime you want to have some things still enabled, like WMI, so the Windows Management Instrumentation. I feel it's better to have it still enabled for wPrime than disabling it. On old platforms like 775 I don't feel that much difference by having it existing or not, but with this newer stuff I like to have it still there, because it does affect wPrime or the way it reads the CPU. If Windows Management Instrumentation has been completely wiped out, it doesn't read any CPU at all in wPrime, and if it still exists, it will just read these newer CPUs, often as Intel Xeon 3 processor or something like that. But now it will complete the format, it will copy all the files, and then we will just reboot once, and then we will get on to the installation screen. Well, this part of the installation will be completely same as in my Z490 XP installation guide video, so you can actually skip this part, and most of the other important stuff will happen just on the desktop. But again, if you have prepared your ISO file to the maximum extent, you don't have to make any settings or changes in this part of the installation. So just to let you know, if you don't edit the unattended part of the ISO file, you will have to select like time zones and so on. But as I've already set them in the ISO file itself, I don't have to set them now at this part of the installation. Okay, so now we just landed on the desktop. So the key about making the Windows XP as good as possible is to have it as tiny as possible. So the smaller the better when it comes to the operating system size. So I actually, especially when I run older operating systems, I actually don't even use the maximum resolution. I just use like 1280 by 2024. But of course, for a better view for you guys, I will now put it in 1080p. And I will also select, you have to disable the hardware acceleration for all of the tests, 1M, wPrime, Pifast. If you don't disable this, the performance will be bad, and then you just have to install a graphics driver if you don't disable this. Some people even like to disable the write combining, but I haven't found that much gain from disabling this, but you can if you wish. Okay. So our operating system is currently reading around 50 megabytes being used. So first we go to control panel and system. We go to the advanced tab over here, performance. Then I have of course set many of these things to the best by default already, but how I do this is I select adjust for best performance, but we will keep the use visual styles on Windows buttons and on Windows and buttons, because this will make sure that we will still have themes enabled. We don't want to have themes disabled. that depends on which platform you like to run and so on. But for like general Superpi action, I feel it's better to have themes enabled, so either silver or olive green. On X58, especially for wPrime, it's better to run without themes, but you have to test that out yourself. It depends on, I don't know, maybe it just depends on the actual time, and it depends on which parts you are running, but test that out yourself. And also have this enabled, so drop shadows for icon labels and so on. So apply. Then processor scheduling, keep it on the programs. Then memory usage, change from programs to system cache. And go to virtual memory. Some people like to use tiny like page file, like 512 to 512 on the system partition or on the Superpi partition. But in my testing, I have always had the best performance by disabling the page file altogether. So we will disable them, and we will still not reboot. Then we go to the very important thing for like 2D overclocking in Windows XP. So when it comes to Superpi, Pifast, well, not always Pifast that much, but like Superpi and wPrime, we want to run those two tests, and sometimes also Pifast, from a RAM drive within the operating system. So RAM drive is like a one-time only storage drive, so it always gets wiped out when you reboot or just lose power from your memory. So we just move the benchmark, or we copy the benchmark to the RAM drive, and then we just run it from there, and we will get a slight performance boost, at least in Superpi, 1M, 32M, and on many platforms in wPrime and Pifast as well. Some people have better performance in Pifast and wPrime by not running them from RAM drive. But again, you have to test that out yourself. I like to run them from RAM drive if it gives some slight gain. So I have the RAM drive over here in the D partition. It's this EVGA Z490. It's actually originally Japanese software, so Japanese guys were the original like Superpi champions. They were the guys who were competing in Superpi and other tests as first. So they like made many of these old programs that we still use today. Even the Superpi test was made in Japan in 1996 or 1995. August, yeah. So we just have the EVGA Z490 over here. So we go to add hardware in control panel. We wait that to load. We will select yes, I have already connected the hardware. We scroll down to the bottom, add a new hardware device, and manually, so advanced, next, show all devices, next, have disk, and we will browse. We go to the D partition, we scroll right to E, so EVGA Z490. Then the 2000 is for Windows XP as well, and these are for old operating systems. I mean older. This RAM drive software is damn old. It's probably from 90s if I'm not like completely wrong. So just for you to know. But it works. It works amazingly well for this purpose, no matter how old it is. So 2000, so Windows 2000 and XP, EVGA Z490, OK, and next, and it will install it, right? Now the EVRAM doesn't work if we don't have system memory limited. So we currently have the maximum of 32-bit OS, so we have well, the maximum is 3.3 gigabytes, but we have 2.44 measured at the moment. So we press right click and refresh, so it appears over here. then you need to have enough space in the RAM drive. 50 megabytes is not enough, but I usually use 100 megabytes, so 100,000 kilobytes. That's 100 megabytes. And then external. You can use local device if you wish, but I leave it unticked, and I will press OK. Still, we will not reboot yet. Then we have to format it. So we go to the EVGA Z490 and double click this. Now it has been formatted. Now we go to, we have to double check that the large system cache is now enabled, so we go to Rec Edit, and you can press Ctrl and F and type in large system cache, and we can see it's enabled, so the value is 1, not 0. Some people also try to mess around with the second level cache, but second level data cache, but I didn't find like noticeable gain from changing it. And we will just check that this is enabled in every scenario. Okay, so we can close that over, close that right there. We go to run msconfig, so Microsoft config. We go to well, you can already make it a diagnostic startup at this point as well if you wish, but if you want to install something still up to this point, you need to keep the Windows installer enabled in manual mode, so not disabled. So if you want to install anything like programs, graphics card driver, you need to have a Windows installer ready. So I will make it as diagnostic startup already. We go to the boot ini tab, we go to advanced option. Now maxmem, so we want to limit, we have to limit the maximum memory that the operating system can read. The best value people used on this was either 600 or 640. I always went for the halfway, and I always like to use 620 in the maximum. PCI lock is kinda, I haven't seen that much like gain from this. On old platforms like 775 I usually tick this, but with these newer things I have not touched that. The num proc means the maximum processor thread count, so you can disable the thread count with this setting. So 620. Apply. Now we will have the RAM drive working as well. Then we go to services. Generally, what services I keep enabled are event log for faster boot and shutdown and restart. If you don't have event log enabled, the whole the booting will take ages and so on. So I always keep it enabled. Plug and play. Then NVIDIA display driver service if you have installed graphics card driver for wPrime, and if you use x58 for example. x58 you need to install graphics card driver to have fast performance even in slow mode, QPI mode. But so just remember that x58 you always have to install graphics card driver. Then themes, we want to have themes enabled if we find that we have the best performance. We are currently running a silver theme, as we can see from properties, appearance, the silver, but you can test between olive green, silver. The blue is rarely the fastest one. I usually like to use silver, but that's really my personal preference. So themes, and for wPrime I like to keep these Windows management instrumentations enabled. So I will apply and enable them. But again, if you want to install something still after this, tick the Windows installer. Now we will reboot. Okay, so now when we rebooted we got this black background. Now we have 43 megabytes left. This small annoying icon over here takes 2 megabytes of space as well, I think, but I cannot remove it for some reason. Yeah, for some reason I cannot remove it for now. I will change the background to something better. But yeah, so now we have the RAM drive over here. I will put it on the desktop. So the way I do this is I will put all the necessary things I want to have as shortcuts on the desktop. So I will take CPU Z and just make sure that for extreme overclocking you want to have the XOC one. So it loads up faster and it's easier to validate the frequency. So when we open it up, it loads up faster and it's more stable when you press F7 to save a validation file. So we have 10900K, Z490 DARK KP, and the memory is limited to 620 megabytes. So we have that. Then I take Superpi Pifast. I like to use OCX Superpi tweaker. Some people like to use, or some people like to do Copy Waza manually. You can do that, of course. I have done that as well, but I really like the Superpi tweaker from OCX. It's very good. And then I will take wPrime. Wahahaha, this is the program to drop the memory. I will show you, because many of you have asked me that what the heck is that software I always click. So look, 60.3 megabytes limited, I mean left or used. It dropped the memory used by 0.2 megabytes, so that it only frees up some available memory. In new operating systems like Windows 10, it might drop the used memory from, let's say, like 2 gigabytes down to 1.7. So there the impact is higher than in this small operating system. Then you want to have screenshot program. There's a better one on HWBot that saves as PNG. I just don't have it at hand over here. PNG has better quality than JPEG, so it's better to use PNG than JPG or JPEG. So we have them. Then I like to use this Award Fabric wPrime tweaker, although it doesn't have that much impact on newer hardware than with older hardware. And that's pretty much it, I guess. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So just then you need the overclocking software, but I don't have it at the moment for this. So the way I do this is I move, for this initial moment, I will move all of these to the RAM drive and I just make shortcuts. So I will right click, create shortcut for the wPrime, and I will, well, you can rename it and put like ERAM wPrime. Superpi, just make that. And Pifast shortcut as well, but Pifast doesn't always run better. Pifast often runs better from the actual folder compared to the RAM drive, so we can actually compare that. So ERAM and then just normal Pifast. But yeah, so I want to show you. So the loading of wPrime takes longer when we have Windows management instrumentation still enabled. So now we have CPU 0 Intel Pentium 2 Xeon processor. Of course it's not correct. So 20 threads. We can try. We can see the difference between normal drive and RAM drive. 1.999, 1.999, 1.999. So let's open up RAM drive or RAM wPrime. 1.984, so 15 milliseconds faster. I personally think it's better to run from a RAM drive, just my personal feeling. 1.984. Okay, but you cannot, at least in my personal feeling is that you cannot run the wPrime from same execution for too long. So now let's try with the Award Fabric wPrime tweaker. The only thing this does is it sets all wPrime executions in Task Manager to real time. So we have wPrime over here. It's set in real time by that software. So look, it's actually worse. With old platforms, this is very, very good, but it seems that it's not very good with Z490. I will try the normal wPrime, so not RAM drive with that. But the variance is huge between different platforms, so just you have to test this out yourself. They can vary a lot. So yeah, that program sucks for this new platform, so you can see it out yourself. So best performance, RAM drive without real-time tweak. Then when it comes to Pifast, we can try that. So normal Pifast first, and this requires you to have hardware acceleration disabled to have correct performance. If you don't disable hardware acceleration, it will lag a lot, this whole screen, and you might even have tiny bit better performance if you just install a graphics driver, but you have to test it out again. 18.56, and it passed when it says the computation seems okay. If you have error over here, it means it has crashed. So even if you get this jot down for a screenshot, if there's an error, it means you have failed. So you cannot submit a score with error to HWBot. But yeah, so 18.56, then RAM version, ERAM version. But I think this should give you like a good baseline on how to prepare an operating system in general. There are every person has their own way on preparing the overclocking operating system. And see 18.38 versus 18.56, so we have almost 0.2 second improvement, like huge improvement. But when we have like maximum settings, so a high overclock on the CPU with very tight MEMS, we might even have worse performance from by running Pifast from ERAM. So the situation might be different with maximum frequencies. So again, it might be different over there. So you really have to test these out. You really have to test these things out yourself. So just saying, but this difference was huge if you ask me. Then just Superpi. Oh, we already have it over there. So Superpi. The way I run Superpi is that we want to get the lowest possible 16K, although I have it over there already. That's made at 7.3 gigahertz or 7.4 gigahertz. That's 0.31 seconds. 78. So 78 was our best. So we got 78 again. So now we could run Superpi 1M. For Superpi 1M, you don't generally do Copy Waza. You could do some tiny Copy Waza like 200 megabytes, but generally you don't. You just change this to real time and change the affinity. Well, you don't run Superpi 1M or any of these one thread tests like 32M Pifast with hyperthreading enabled, because you want to run this test on a physical core, not from a thread. So you would have to find out the best or the fastest physical core and then just enable it by selecting the affinity. But as I'm running the stock 10 core 20 threads, I will not do it right now, and then we will just let it run. Yeah, the fastest run is under 5 seconds, but I don't remember how fast. So 10.266. Then just many people even like to have a bat file to clean the the Superpi files, because it takes time for the test to overwrite the previous result files. So that's why I deleted them now, and I just recopied to the RAM drive. Now we want to get the lowest 16K again. Okay, 32M. Then we open OCX Superpi Tweaker. Now the Copy Waza size is also a lot about personal preference. Some people like to use high, like 1 gigabyte, 1200 megabytes, 1500 megabytes. I have mostly used like 1600, but really you have to test it out yourself. And it depends on the platform being used again, and about many things. But 600 has been generally a quite good size. But try larger Copy Waza size as well, like 1 gigabyte, 1200 megabytes, 1500 megabytes, or even higher. So Superpi partition is D, not Z, not the RAM drive. D. Second partition is C. Single file size you can make what you want. I have used 512 kilobytes. You can only do like one time, or you can tick the CDT and it will make free copies, so it will copy the files back and forth, or 3 times, so from D to C, then from C to D, and then 1 time from D to C again. Clean. I will clean the previous files, and we can see how this works. Or we might have an issue. I will show it to you soon if we have an issue, and I will tell it to you what it is. This will not work if you don't have xcopy.exe in your System32, but we can see it right now. We have, so we can see that the available memory was dropping. Now it goes back up near to the system cache value. But if nothing happens when you press the start button or the run button, if it just goes straight to finishing, so it doesn't even do like doing Copy Waza, it only goes straight to finishing and the available memory doesn't drop, you are missing the xcopy.exe from your System32 folder. You can get that exe file from another like Windows XP installation. Just copy paste the exe file and just put it in the System32. I might even upload that exe file for you. If some of you guys is missing it, you can download it and just place it in the System32. It's very common, at least for me, that it's missing. Then we check it's real time, and you can disable explorer.exe if you wish. It's not compulsory, but it often helps. And then we just run. So this is like a simplified version or a guide on how to run Superpi 32M. So that's how you run it pretty much. You just need good CPU, core, cache, and memory to get good performance. And you need if talking about Z490 motherboard or a platform, you need to use a BIOS with microcodes removed to have the best performance. So just saying. So I guess you already remember that, which as I said that in the Z490 XP installation guide video. So just saying. So many of these old tests, you have to get the BIOS with all the U codes removed for the best performance. But that's how you prepare. Windows XP or Server 2003, it's the same. Server 2003 is the same thing as Windows XP. So with these steps, but to get the lowest possible size on your OS, it's really it's a lot about your actual operating system preparation as well. This would drop as well if I disable the audio and LAN from the BIOS, but right now this whole machine is completely stuck, and all of those unnecessary things are running in the background, like audio, LAN. They actually take up a little bit of size. The lowest memory use I have managed to get has been like 28 megabytes, so that's extremely low. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So nothing really else. So you just need to put the program to control stuff on the desktop as well. So set FSP if you run old platforms like 775 or X58, and the software to change voltages and clocks like ELite, Asus Turbo V Core, ASRock Formula Drive, something like that. And you need the for Z490 you need the tool to unlock the higher multipliers than stock when using no microcode BIOS. When you use the BIOS which has the microcodes removed, it will just boot into the operating system with the stock multiplier like 37 or 43. So just for you to know, but that's how you run it. That's how you run these tests in Windows XP, and that's how at least I prepare these operating systems myself. So please give a thumbs up if you like to see this video, and subscribe to my channel. There aren't that many like very in-depth guides about old stuff like this anymore on the internet, not to mention YouTube. So definitely give a good comment if you wanted to see something like this. And thanks for watching once again, and I will see you on the next one.